With the help of distinct, I can avoid the duplicate values. So null represents the absence of the value in the table. Primary key will be unique for each and every record. Commit in the sense you are saving whatever the work that you have done till now in the database. Hello everyone, I welcome all of you to the yet another interesting session on SQL commands. Yes, in my previous session, I have discussed most of the important SQL commands with the syntax. Yes, it's time for all of us to check what do I have in this session. Yes, my dear students, in the agenda, I will be discussing some of the important SQL commands which I have not discussed in the previous session. Along with that, I will also discuss the main important concept that's going to be the SQL constraints. You can also expect this constraints for 5 marks. It's going to be very, very important and very interesting in fact. So guys, yes, let's start the session. What is the first thing that I have? So the first one that I have here is group by. Whenever I say group by, so we have already discussed some of the concept called order by. It is also kind of similar topic which you need to understand. Let me explain this very clearly. Listen to me. In this concept, I have taken one table. I'm naming this table as Facebook. All right. So the name of the table is Facebook. In this table, I have got 3 columns. The first column name is name. The second column name is state. And the third column name is number of friends. So fine. You understood the table structure. What are the data that I have? I have the names here. I have the different states here. You need to observe one thing. So here I have CA 3 times and 1 FL, the state name normally we have taken. So 3 times I have CA and 1 FL. That's what you need to observe here. And we have the number of friends, 300, 500, 600, 400. That's the data that we have in the table. Now, suppose if I write the query like this. So select, okay. So we have 3 clauses here. The first clause is select. So which column am I going to select? So observe here state. So state is what? This is the column which I am selecting. So fine, I'm going to select this column. And after that, so please observe, I'm using the aggregate function. I'm using the aggregate function. So what is this count star? Count in the sense it counts the number of rows. So how many rows it should count? I have used star. It should completely count the total number of rows in the table. That is what actually the count is doing here. So fine, my output should give me 2 things. One is state, another one is count. So fine, from which table it should give? So from the table Facebook, that is this table. So what is the condition we have? Group by. So guys, I'm using group by. So group by state. State is what here? So state is this column. I need to group this entire column. So group by in the sense how exactly it is working, sir. You can observe 2 states I have. So the output table is here I've given. Okay. So I have 2 states. One is CA, another one is FL. Okay. So that is what you need to observe. My count function will give me how many number of times CA is present. So that is what the count will give me. And FL, how many number of times FL is present. You can just see in the GIF what I'm using. So total number of CA that I have here is 3. You're getting the result as 3 and then FL is 1. So you should get the result as 1. This is how my group by is working. If you have anything in the table, so if you have, say for example, imagine place is one of the column that I have. So people are coming from different places like, Mysuru, Bangalore, Mangalore. So you need to know how many number of people are coming from Mysuru. So group by place. So Mysuru, you will have 10 people. Bangalore, you will have 5 people. Like this, you will be using the group by in order to group the elements in the columns. Going forward to the next one that I have, distinct. This is one of the beautiful things that I have. Why do we need this distinct? Let me explain that before I get into the syntax. Say for example, I have students in my class and I have around 60 students. Let's imagine I need to retrieve the unique names that I have in the class. What exactly it means? Imagine I have Abhishek. So I can expect 2 or 3 members can have the same name, but I don't want the duplications. I don't want the Abhishek to be present more than 1 time. So I need to avoid the duplication. So for that reason, how do I do it? I want the application Abhishek to be present only one time. How do I do it? So with the help of distinct, I can avoid the duplicate values. So that is what you need to remember with respect to the distinct. So how do I use it? So guys, so whenever you need to select any data from the table, the first thing that you need to remember is all about the select. So fine, I'm using the select, then followed by, I will be using the keyword called distinct. So fine, this is also keyword. Then what is this name? Name is the column name which you are going to display. So in this column, if I have any name, it should print only one time, not more than one time. So that is the speciality of this distinct. So obviously, you know that from which table? Student table. This is how my distinct is working. That's what you need to remember. Going forward to the next one that we have, null. Null in the sense what? So null represents the absence of the value in the table. Okay, so that's what we are using. This is a keyword that you need to use it like this. Okay, let's check how do I use it. Observe, I'm writing a query. So for that, display the employee code, name and their job whose department number is null. Okay, I will repeat the question. So guys, I need to display employee code. This is the first thing that I need to display. Along with that, name I will display. Along with that, their job. Okay, I will display. Three things I will display. Whose details I should display? Whose department number is null. Who don't have the department number. Okay, so their details I will display. How do I do it? So whenever I want to display, so what is that you will use? Obviously, select. So what is that you want to display? You want to display employee number, employee name and job. That is what they have given. All right. So employee number and this is employee code. So from which table? From employee table. Till here, it's very simple. But now observe in the where condition, I'll give department number is null. So this is what you need to observe. Whose data is not there. So that is what I will represent it as is null. So absence of data will be represented with this keyword. This is what you need to remember. So now imagine I will also have not null. So guys, what happens with a not null? So I will mention in the condition where department number is not null. So I will be, imagine I have a query. So what is that query? Display the employee code, name, their job, whose department number is not null. So who has entered the details for the department number. So for that reason, I will give it as a not null. So I will mention here instead of is null, I will just mention not null. So that is what you need to remember. So that details will be retrieved. So if it is null, I will not retrieve that data. If it is not null, only then I will retrieve these details is what you need to remember with respect to the not null. So hope you got the clear idea about the null and not null. The next one that we have is all about create view. So what exactly this create view is all about? Imagine I have multiple tables. I need to form one more separate table by taking the data from different multiple tables. So that is what I will call it as a create view. So my dear students, for this view, you cannot modify the data, you cannot update the data, you cannot insert the data. Only the thing is, you can make one view by selecting the data from multiple tables. That is what I will call it as a view. So I will repeat, listen to me carefully, understand the concept. Imagine I have the data, okay, in this table. This is table number 1, okay. So fine, this is table number 2 and I have table number 3. So I can also have more than 3 tables. I will take the data from multiple tables and I will make one virtual table. This is what I will call it as a view. But you need to understand one thing. So for this view, I cannot do anything. I cannot modify the data what I have in this view. I cannot insert the data. I cannot modify the data. I cannot update the data. It is only to view, as the name itself says. It is just to project the data by taking the data from multiple tables. That is what you need to remember with respect to creating the views. So fine, you got the idea about the views. How do I create the views? You need to remember the syntax, create view. How do I do it? So you have to use the keyword create, followed by you have to use view, and you have to give the name for that view. Like how you have for each and every table, how the table has got the name, in the same way, whatever the view that you are creating, for this also you have to give the name. So for that reason, observe here, create view and view name as, so you will give. So what is this? This is the syntax to create a view. So as is a rename that you are giving. So fine. So where is the data which is coming from? So for that, I will write the query here. So this query will fetch the data and I will name that as whatever the view that I have given here. For example, observe here. So create view employee view as. I've given this, I've written the syntax like this, but from where I'm taking the data, so that is what you need to observe here. Select employee age from employee. That's what you need to observe here. So this data, what I'm taking from the employee table, that is what I will be treating it as a employee view. That's what you need to remember. So with respect to the view. Moving forward to the next one that we have, commit. Commit is very, very simple concept that you need to remember. Commit in the sense you are saving whatever the work that you have done till now in the database. Whatever the changes that you have done, so you are just saving, like how we have control plus S in the Word. In the same way in the database, if you execute this command, okay, so you are saving the state of the database. Till now what you have done, that will be saved. That will be there even if you open that, later. That's what you need to remember with respect to the commit command. Moving forward to the next one, DCL command. When it comes to the DCL command, two things you need to remember. One is grant, another one is revoke. This is all about giving the permission and taking the permission to the users. So how exactly I will be able to give the permission to someone else who is using the database? So I will show you the syntax. How exactly, if I want to grant the permission to someone, what is the syntax that I have to use? So guys, first of all, I have to use the keyword called grant. So fine. Then after that, what is the privilege name that you want to give? So you can specify the privilege name here. And then next one is on object name. Object in the sense it can be a database, it can be a table. So whatever the objects that you have, you can specify the name of the object to which one you want to grant the permission. So do you want to grant the permission on a table? So you can specify the table name. So fine. Then to whom are you giving this permission? So that is what you need to mention after the keyword to. So here I can mention for three people. One is username you can mention, or you can mention it for public for everyone, or you can also mention the role name. You can also mention the role name. So we can make it like, for example, I have some username. We have already created with the help of database administrator. So that username I can give. Or I'm using the or symbol here. It doesn't mean that you have to give all the three. Any one you can specify. So username you can specify, or any group name, or any role name. So you can specify there. And with the grant options. Say for example, can I give the permission to other? So that is what I will be mentioning in the last one. That's what you need to remember with respect to the grant when you are giving the permission to someone else to do something. So that's what you need to remember. Same thing with opposite thing that I have with respect to the revoke. I have given the permission, I need to take it back. How do I do it? It's simple. I will be just using one keyword, that is revoke. Rest everything almost same. Everything is same. That's what you need to remember. Only thing is grant here I'm using the revoke. That's what you need to remember with respect to the DCL. The next one is very, very important. What exactly that we have? Constraints. Constraints in the sense rules. Rules. What are the different types of rules that I have to follow? So I have listed around 5 different rules. What are the rules that we have here? One is primary key. Another one is foreign key. We also call this foreign key as referential key. The third one that we have is not null, unique, check, and then default. So we have around 6. Okay. So 5 plus 1, 6 constraint we have. So is this only 6 constraint do we have in the SQL? No, we have more than 6. That's what you need to remember. So fine. What exactly this constraint is all about? So guys, let me explain this in detail one by one. So let me start with the primary key constraint. When I'm creating the table, I will make one of the column as a primary key. What is the meaning of primary key? Say for example, I'm creating the table. Okay. So the name of the table is student. What is the name of the table? Student. So in this, I will have 4 columns. The first column is SID. Okay, the first column is SID. Let me just make this SID as a primary key. Okay, what happens if I make this as a primary key? You need to remember 2 things. If I say primary key, so primary key in the sense it should not be null, not null plus unique, not null plus unique. That is what I will call it as a primary key. Not null in the sense what, sir? I cannot skip entering the value to this column. Suppose if I skip entering the value to this column, it will show me an error. So that is the first important thing that you need to remember. Second thing, I cannot enter the data which I have already entered. Say for example, here I have 1. I cannot enter 1 again here. It will show me an error. So that I will configure. So that is what I will call it as a primary key constraint. That is what I will call it as a primary key constraint. How do I do it? It's very simple. You all know I've discussed how do we create the table, right? Same syntax. So guys, create table, table name. Open the parenthesis. You will have the column names along with the database or data types. So observe here. What is this ID? ID is a column name. Int is a data type of this ID. Here, after that, I will just specify primary key. I will just specify the primary key. If I specify this primary key here, I'm making this ID as a primary key. That's what you need to remember. This is how I will be converting this column as a primary key. So if I say this is a primary key, I have to follow these 2 things. That is not null plus unique. That is what you need to remember. Whatever the data that I enter here, so that should be unique. Sir, first of all, can you please tell me why should I make this as a primary key? Can you please tell me? Yes, my dear students, I will have thousands of records. If I want to identify the records uniquely, how do I identify? So for that reason, I will be using the primary key. Sir, what is records? Say for example, 01. Okay, here I will have name. I will write ABC, age, 18, phone number. Okay, so something like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like this, I will have 1000 rows. This is what I will call it as a record. One record. This is one record of a student. Okay, like this, I will have 1000 students, 1000 records. So, if I want to retrieve the information about this ABC, how do I retrieve? So, for that reason, I will be using this primary key because primary key will be unique for each and every record. That's what you need to remember at this point of time. Moving forward to the next one that we have, referential integrity. That's going to be the foreign key. What exactly the foreign key is all about? Sir, it's very simple. We call the person who is coming from other country as a foreigner. In the same way, observe here what I will call it as a foreign key. Let's understand this simple very easily. So guys, imagine I will have 2 tables. Okay, so one is student table. Okay, another one is marks table. So this is what you need to remember. How many tables we have? 2 tables. In this table, SID. Okay, I will treat this as primary key. SID, I will treat it as primary key. So fine. In this table, I will have MID. Okay, so MID, I will treat it as primary key. Along with this MID, I will also have this SID. So observe here carefully. So I will have name, I will have age, I will have score. Okay, so fine. I will fill all the details here. So observe here carefully. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, a B, age 18, Ramu, age 18, Sita, age 18. Okay, so here marks ID M1, M2, M3. Okay, so now I have to enter the SID. Observe here carefully. So SID, I will just write 4. So if I enter 4, it will show me an error. Why? Because there is no student called 4. Whatever I have entered here, so for these student, I have to enter it here. Sir, why sir? Why it is showing error now? Why can't I enter the students which is not there here? Because the primary key of this table is acting as a foreign key in some other table. If I use the primary key of this table in this table. So this key is acting as a foreign key in this table. The data, whatever I have here, so that should match here. Otherwise, I will get an error. That is what you need to understand. Suppose if I enter like this, observe here carefully. If I enter 1, okay, imagine this is beautifully, I'm writing 1. Okay, so can I enter the score for the student? Yes, 100. So whose score is 100? So SID, that is 01. 01 in the sense what? Abhi. Suppose if I enter M2, okay, M2, 02. So whose score is this? Like for example, if I enter 50, whose score is this? Ramu's score. If I enter M3, 5, 60. Can I enter this? No, you cannot enter because there is no primary key data, that is 5. So this key, the primary key of one table will act as a foreign key in some other table. So that is what I will call it as a foreign key. So fine, hope you understood the foreign key now. So guys, how do I declare this foreign key using the syntax? Observe here carefully. So first of all, I'm creating the table. Okay, when I'm creating the table itself, I have to do this. So create table orders. Which table I'm creating? I'm creating the table called order. Okay, I'm creating the table now. So guys, in this table, what is the first column that we have? Order ID. Okay, fine. I'm creating order ID. Done. Observe here, I'm making this as a primary key of this order table. So fine. Then after that, what is the next one that we have? Order number. Observe here, not null. I will explain about not null. Right now, don't worry. So what is the next column that you have? Order number. So fine, you have order number is the second column. Then after that, what is the next thing that you have? You have person ID. So guys, observe here, person ID. All right, the next column is person ID. So fine, you have created that person ID. Now, what is the next line you have? Foreign key. Okay, what is that you have given? Foreign key. So which one are you trying to make as a foreign key? So you have person ID. You have person ID. So in this table, that is what you are making it as a foreign key. So fine, you are making this as a foreign key. Then references. In which table? So this is primary key. That is what I have to mention. So in the table persons, there is one more table here. Okay, so that is what I will call it as a persons. I have to mention the name of the table. So fine, the name of the table is persons. That is what I have mentioned here. So in that table, so what is the primary key? So there also I have given it as person ID. You have to mention that person ID. So that is what we have mentioned here. So what is that you will mention? First, primary key. Is it? No, foreign key. You have to mention it as foreign key. Which column you want to make it as foreign key? So you have to mention that. Then after that, references. Which table you want to refer? So that table name you have to mention. So person is the table. Then after that, in this table, which one you will mention it as a primary key? That column name you have to mention. At the end, so semicolon. So this will, we have given it here. So this will create the foreign key constraint. So hope you understood how exactly foreign key is working. Moving forward to the next one, not null constraint. What exactly not null constraint is all about? So same thing, I'm creating the table. Let me not bore you by repeating the same thing. But observe here in this column, that is ID, and the data type is int. I have mentioned it as not null. What is the meaning of not null? When I'm creating the table, observe here. This is my table. ID is the column that I have. Not null, if I have specified, I cannot skip entering the values. There should be some value. I have to enter some value. If I don't enter the value, it will show me an error. It will not create the table. That is what you need to remember. That is the constraint that we have given. That is the rule that we have given. In the same way, I have unique key. What is the meaning of unique key? Observe here. I am trying to create the table. So I have given ID int not null. So fine, you understood that. Then last name varchar not null. You know that. Okay, first name varchar age int unique. I'm using the keyword within the parenthesis ID. I have given ID. What is this ID? ID is the column name. So what is this unique? Whatever the data that you enter in this column, it should be unique. You cannot enter the repeated value. So that is what you need to remember. This is how I will make the column to enter the data, especially a unique data. That's what you need to remember. at this point of time. Moving forward to the next one, check constraint. What is this check constraint? So guys, I'm creating the table as usual, and I have the first column as ID, and the second column as last name, and third column as first name, and fourth column is age. Data type is int, then followed by I have given check within the parenthesis age, that is this one I have mentioned, the column name should be greater than or equal to 18. I'm just checking. What is the meaning of it? Imagine this is my table, okay? First column, second column, third column. This is the fourth column, that is age. Whenever I'm entering the value to this column, it should check whether the value is greater than or equal to 18 or not. If it is not satisfying this condition, I will not be able to enter the value. It will show me an error. If I enter the value which is below 18, so it will show me an error. It will not take that data at all. So that is how my check constraint is working. All right. Moving forward to the next constraint that we have, default constraint. Default constraint in the sense what? Guys, by default, if you don't enter the value, I will fill the value for a column. How exactly it is? Let me show you. So what is that you're doing? You're trying to create the table called person. So fine, beautiful table. Okay. So what is the name of the table? Person is the name of the table. So fine, you have done that. The next column, ID. So fine, one column you're creating, ID. So fine, next one, last name. Okay. The next one is last name. Next one, first name. Let me just write FN. Okay. The next one that we have here is age. Okay. Let me just write that age. You have created that column also. The next one that we have is city. So guys, observe here. This is very important. City, varchar 255. So fine, you're using the data type called variable character. Size that you have given is 255. Here, observe. I'm using a keyword called default. Within quotes, I'm using MYSURU. What is the meaning of it? You don't have to enter the data for this column. By default, you are entering MYSURU. For all the row, all the record, whatever you enter, so you don't have to enter the data for this column. Automatically, it will be MYSURU. Suppose if you want to enter any other value, you can enter. But by default, this value will be there in the city. That's what you need to observe with respect to the default constraint. So this is all about the different constraints that we have. Moving forward to the next important thing, that's going to be aggregate functions. When it comes to the aggregate functions, my dear students, we have 5 different types of aggregate functions. What exactly aggregate functions is all about? The first aggregate function that we have here is all about the min. Okay, so it will aggregate the value and it will give me. So for example, imagine I have the table. Okay, so you have the table, sir. We got bored of listening to that table. So fine. Okay, I will finish it in 5 minutes. So I have the table. The table name, let me just write it as student. Okay, so table name is student. Okay, so fine, I have serial number, I have name, I have age, I have marks. Okay, imagine like this. Now I have entered around 100 records, 100 student details. I need to check whose marks is very low, who has scored less marks. How do I find that? So guys, with the help of the min function, I will be able to check that. How do I do that? So select min is a function. What is that? Min is a function. So min, I will write marks. You have to enter the name of the column. So select min will give the minimum value from this column. So from, you will give the table name. If you have any conditions, you can specify that in the where clause. Otherwise, you can just use the semicolon here itself to get the minimum value from that column. Suppose if I want to take who has scored highest, so what I will do, simply I will just replace it with the max. Instead of min, I will use the max. That's what you need to remember. So fine, I need to check how many number of records that I have. Okay, how do I count the entire table, how many records that I have? So for that, I will be just replacing this with the count. Okay, star in the sense it will take the entire table. So this is the third aggregate function that we have. This is what you need to remember. So what is the first one? Min. Second one, max. Third one, count. This is what you need to observe. And guys, I have entered the marks for everybody. I need to calculate the average. Okay, I need to calculate the average marks in this. How do I calculate? It's very simple. Instead of now writing this min max, I will just write AVG and then open parenthesis marks. Okay, in this place, you will just write this AVG marks. It will give you the average value. This is what you need to remember. So fine. The next one, imagine all of them have got the marks. So if I add up all the marks, okay, the total marks I will get. So everybody's marks I will add. So how do I calculate that? I will calculate that with the help of the function called sum, okay, marks. With the help of the function called sum marks. Sum function will help me to calculate the total value of this entire column. That's what you need to remember. So fine, let me just show you the syntax. So guys, observe here, I'm just using the function called max. This will give me the maximum value from the table. In the same way, count, okay? So to count the number of records, how do you select the entire table? By just placing this star, you will select the entire table. The next one that we have is average value. That's what you need to remember. And then sum of the entire column. This is what you need to remember with respect to the aggregate function. With this, I have come to an end of the session. In the next session, I will be discussing some of the important topics. So till then, happy learning. Take care. Bye-bye.